what is that? An icy? Yeah, that's probably a lot of sugar, huh? Good to see you.
Ron DeSantis has, or DeSantis as he says it, has been mocked by the left and right for his many awkward moments like the one you just saw. Way to relate to a kid, tell him how much sugar he's eating. But not everyone is joining in on the fun. The Washington Post spoke to a number of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, who actually sympathize with DeSantis because they too are cripplingly awkward. Let's hear from some socially inept Americans, shall we? Every time I watch the DeSantis videos, I cringe, said Kate Eck, a therapist from New Jersey who recently forgot to bring identification when picking up her child at summer camp and subsequently really weirded out a counselor by offering to show her C-section scar as proof of motherhood. But I'm cringing because I've been that person. Or like Ben Terrace, in the Washington Post reported, like Ron DeSantis, I spend every day trying to act like a human, said Michelle Witherspoon, an environmental consultant in California. Or this example, it's extremely relatable to me, said Audrey Kamena, an incoming freshman to Yale University, who said she once called her high school history teacher mom and still thinks about it every night before bed. It's time to let it go, Audrey, let it go. Some of us do feel that pain more than others, but I think we've definitely all been there once or twice at least, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Our presidents are usually highly confident people, even if that confidence is very much unearned. But Hannah Pryor, author of the upcoming book, Good Awkward, How to Embrace Your Embarrassing and Celebrate the Cringe to Become the Bravest You, thinks you can succeed even if you're awkward. The problem with DeSantis, according to Pryor, is that he's not leaning into his awkwardness enough. Pryor said when researching her book, she found studies that showed a direct correlation between expressing awkwardness and the perception that a person is trustworthy, likable, more generous, and surprisingly more confident. But for that to happen, she said, the awkward person actually needs to acknowledge the cringe. DeSantis's problem is he never owns it and names it. If he did, it would highly improve his likability. I don't disagree with that. I use that tactic a lot in stand-up. But even if DeSantis fixed his personality, the only problem is he'd still have the little issue of his abhorrent and hate-filled policy proposals. So there's that still. Kate Eckey, the therapist who was a little too eager to show off her C-section scar, told the Post, given the decision between voting for DeSantis and getting a pap smear from a girl I went to high school with, hand me the paper gown. Well, she just did it again. Very awkward statement. Very awkward statement to make. Another awkward American concluded it's okay to be awkward, but if you are, maybe the presidency isn't the job for you. While I understand where DeSantis is coming from and can relate, it only confirms my feeling that I should not run for president, according to Yale professor Scott Shapiro. On the other hand, W was president for 8 very long years, and he was on the regular saying stuff like this.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Yep, there it is. So the orator of the ages. I love when he puts his hand forward on the podium, clearly freaking the hell out. He's like, there's a saying here in Texas, shame. Oh no. What do I do now?
Okay, but I think there's a difference between Bush and DeSantis. Like Bush was a knucklehead, a numbskull. Everything he said was funny because it's so silly and stupid. He told Brian Williams, I read 3 Shakespeares and a Camus. Right, and we go on and on, right? And Trump's an idiot too, but they're more personable. Like Bush would joke around with people, and people would like him. And it's actually fairly easy to impress the political press as long as you have power. Like I remember I once read a dumbass article about how George Bush was so likable because when he was on Air Force One, he rolled an orange down the alley there and towards the reporters, and it was like, wow, it's crazy. He rolled an orange. That's it, right? But and he would have dumb things like dumb nicknames, like for Vladimir Putin, and I'm not making this up. He called him Pooty Poot. Okay, wow. But And he'd be like, oh, Ben, big Ben, little Ben, short Ben, okay. So, but at least people laughed and they got along and stuff. DeSantis, this article's right, is awkward. And I think they're also right. Like, you could be awkward and be president. Calvin Coolidge was awkward. There were many awkward presidents. Richard Nixon was very awkward, right? But you got to pick a lane. And back then, especially for Coolidge, but Nixon was right on the edge because TV caught him. But you could be reserved and still project strength and didn't interact with people. You weren't in the press 24/7, right? But these days, if you're awkward, you either got to own it or not. Like, you can't go halfway with this stuff. And by the way, I think that he would get a lot of sympathy. There's tons of people who are awkward. It's not that big a deal. Look, I even wonder if he's on the spectrum somewhere. And if he admitted that would get a lot of sympathy. But it's not going to work for GOP voters. That's why they'll think that it's weak. I mean, it's a preposterous thing to think, right? And that's not how you should look at it. But there's no way. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think for the GOP, you got to hide your awkwardness. You got to hide whatever you are because they're not going to like it. You just have to pretend to be strong, and it's just not working out for them.
Yeah, and especially now with Trump being their guy, even though it's ridiculous, Trump being this massive macho masculine guy, even though he's almost 80, he's never been some type of Adonis. He's never been like really in shape. He's never been a ladies' man. He used to call into tabloids and be like, chicks really dig this guy, man. Let me tell you, it was him doing it. Like, nothing about him has ever like really encapsulated the masculine tough guy. But nonetheless, you pointed out that him and George Bush are just a lot more personable than Ron DeSantis. And when George Bush was in office, I was too young and I really wasn't paying attention to politics yet too much. But he just kind of seemed like a really dumb, like that's what they called him, one of the good old boys. He just seemed like a really dumb guy who never should have been in office because essentially Dick Cheney was doing everything anyway. So like he was just this big dumb idiot that people are like, yeah, he's kind of cool. But Ron DeSantis, he tells little kids to, F off because they're eating too much sugar. You might want to watch that sugar intake there. And but it's been pointed out too, his policy positions are in, just loss after loss. So much to the point now where he's trying to tell Disney like, all right, Bob Iger, I've had enough. I'm trying to quit now. So he's backpedaling as much as he can. And I wouldn't be surprised if he loses re-election for Florida governor, but that's still a ways off. So we got to see. I'm
going to make a couple of random points here because Jackson made such great points about how Trump like pretends to be tough and strong. That reference that he made to Trump calling the press, it's true. You can read up on it online. He used to call in with fake names and pretend he was dating hot celebrities and try to get the New York Post and other papers to run those rumors because it would make him look cool, tough, and strong when he wasn't any of those things. And it was hilarious because the reporters, Donald Trump's been famous forever, right? They could tell it's Trump's voice, and he's like, "No, it's not. It's John Miller. I'm calling to say Donald Trump's dating Madonna, and Madonna says he's got no problems down there, no problems at all." Hey, the other fake name he used was John Barron, and then he named his son Barron. He's so dumb. It's unbelievable.
God, I just wish Trump himself was Barron. That would be really much better for the world.
Well, for sure. And I'm going to tell you one more thing about how of a fake tough guy Donald Trump is. Remember, he could have gone to Vietnam, and his daddy got him out with a doctor's note. And they said he had bone spurs in his foot. And when he was running like 1 million years ago, back in 2015, they asked him, "Which foot did you have the bone spurs in?" And he's like, could have been both. Didn't even bother remembering which foot that they were faking the bone spurs in. And later, of course, he told John Kelly, whose son had died in combat, "Why do they do it? It's for suckers and losers to go into the military."
John McCain was a sucker because he got captured. And don't forget, Donald Trump also said that the human body is the human body is like a finite battery. And so when you work out, you lose the energy. So, that's why he stuffs himself with McDonald's and Diet Coke and hatred and pettiness. And that's why he's gonna live to be 100.
Those are all great points. But remember, this story's about how awkward Ron DeSantis is. And that we just proved it to you because he's losing by 40 points to that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And going down.
100%. And also, you reminded me with the Bone Spurs, another one of my favorite Trump nicknames, Napoleon Bone Spurs, which I think does him pretty well. But it really is true. We all have awkward moments. Acknowledging the awkwardness is the best way to ensure that you end up coming out on top of the interaction instead of looking stupid. If you say something stupid, if Bush with that statement about fool me once had said, listen, I clearly forgot what I was saying there, don't know the saying very well, it would have been endearing. If DeSantis had said, I don't know why I just told you how much sugar's in your ice cream, my bad, enjoy it, it's summer, it's hot, have a great time, that was stupid of me to say, it would have been lovely. But he's not a lovely person. It's very hard for the unlovely to fake the lovely.
Yeah, super last thing on it is, look guys, it's not just that he's awkward, and we just showed you a couple of things, but there's dozens and dozens. That's why they wrote this article. He doesn't know how to interact like a human being. But I wanna be fair, the skill that you need to run for president is actually not at all related to the skill you need to be president. Because remember, Donald Trump won, he was the president, so he had enough skill against the incompetent Democratic leadership to win, but he did not have any of the skill to govern. And so we over-focus on how personable these candidates are. It becomes a popularity contest, and by definition, democracy is to some degree, but we have to keep focus on how they would govern. That's more important than anything else, and that's where DeSantis has got the second problem. He's not just awkward with people, but he's mean. He's mean in how he interacts with folks, but he's also mean in how he legislates and governs, and he showed that in Florida. So it's a lose-lose for him, because even as Trump is being mean in how he governs and all the terrible things that he says, he is likable enough for at least Republicans to want to vote for him. So he's at least got one out of the two. DeSantis is going 0 for 2. And you could see it, because Jackson's right. It's not just that he's losing. He was losing by 15 before, and now he's losing by 40. So this thing's almost over, at least for DeSantis. Yeah.
DeSantis is done. That was bad.
But if you suggested Trump, he might run with it. I still want to.
But you see the way I said that was bad, and it got a laugh still. It was an awkward statement.
No, that's a fact though, man. That's a fact. If you don't care, don't nobody care. That exactly. Confidence is so powerful, but you got to be able to do the job too. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly right.
100%.
That's how Jackson succeeds in everything he says. I'm kidding. I don't know why I picked on you for no reason.
It's all right, man.
Are you kidding me? I'm the guy. Right, like if after I do a bad dad joke, I own that right away. Okay.
You got to, man.
It's all about the confidence. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.